Welcome back, you guys. Like, share, subscribe, love nation. We're going to get straight into part two of the Diddy lawsuit with Mr. Jones. And we're going to get into it right now. Like, share, subscribe. Let's go. Pow Pow incident. On or about September 12th of 2022, Mr. Combs held a writers and producers camp at Chalice Recording Studios at 845 Highland Avenue, LA. Present at this camp were Mr. Combs, his son Justin Combs, and Justin's friend G. Mr. G is a 30-year-old tall African American male. In addition to these individuals, other musicians were present at the camp. This writer has spoken to several musicians who attended the camp. One evening during this camp, Diddy, Justin Combs, and G were in a heated conversation. That conversation was moved out of the studio and into a restroom adjacent to where Mr. Jones was sitting. Mr. Jones was approximately 2 feet away from the bathroom when Pow Pow rang out. Mr. Jones recalled hearing multiple Pow Pows. And then these are the footnotes right here that I discussed in a previous video. I'm going to pause it right here. You guys can screenshot that to read it again. They were talking about the implications with Meek Mill as well as Chris Brown. Again, screenshot that. Let's continue. Mr. Jones immediately went into a state of shock and feared that he would be Pow Pow next. Mr. Jones genuinely believed that he would be powed through the door due to how close he was. After the Pow Pow ended, a crowd gathered around the restroom. When the door finally opened, Diddy and Justin exited. G was lying on the restroom floor in a fetal position, holding his stomach and bleeding out of his hip leg area. Everyone stood around looking upon G. Frustrated by the lack of aid to G, Mr. Jones dropped everything, ran to G, and immediately began placing pressure on G's wound to his stomach. As he was applying pressure on his stomach, Mr. Jones realized that G was gushing blood from another area around his lip, leg, or hip. He decided to lift G and place him to sit on the toilet. Mr. Jones asked the crowd to call an ambulance. Mr. Jones lifted G and brought him to the ambulance at the studio's front. At this time, Mr. Combs and Justin disappeared to another part of the studio. Diddy gave strict instructions to inform the police that he had nothing to do with the incident. He also forced Mr. Jones to lie to the police by telling them that G was powed standing outside the studio by a drive-by assailant. And here are some screenshots from the Hollywood recording studio incident. Mr. Jones has several corroborating witnesses who spoke with this writer anonymously due to fear of retaliation from Diddy. They had agreed to speak publicly when subpoenaed. Mr. Jones has the clothing he wore that day and believe it still may have the stains and DNA of G's blood. The following are screenshots of the aftermath of the restroom where G was powed by either Diddy or Justin. Clearly, G was not outside of the studio as Diddy instructed his team to report to law enforcement. Diddy and defendant LR, MR, UMG, CRS provided private security for the writers' camp at defendant CRS. The abbreviations for the people that are initiated right here is in part one of the video where it describes the other defendants. The security was porous and lackluster at best. The fact that either Diddy or Justin were allowed to enter CRS with Pow Pows and those Pow Pows were not confiscated by security is a clear breach of duty by Diddy. Defendants LR, MR, UMG, to protect Mr. Jones and other attendees of this writer's camp. As a result of this pow-powing, Mr. Jones is severely traumatized. Mr. Jones now suffers from PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Mr. Jones was SA harassed and hands put on by Diddy. Throughout his time living with Mr. Combs and Mr. Jones, was the victim of constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching by his male parts by Diddy. These events took place in LA, New York, Florida, and the United States Virgin Islands. In addition to the unsolicited and unauthorized touching, Mr. Jones was forced by Mr. Combs to work in Diddy's bathroom as Diddy walked around with no clothing and showered in clear glass enclosures. As a straight Christian man, Mr. Jones was uncomfortable with Diddy's advances and expressed his discomfort to Diddy's chief of staff, Christina Koran, initials are KK. KK responded to Mr. Jones' complaint with, "You know, Sean will be Sean." KK also attempted to downplay Mr. Combs putting his hands on Mr. Jones' male parts as friendly horseplay, stating that those acts were Diddy's way of showing that he likes you, Mr. Jones. Despite these assurances on several occasions, when Mr. Combs, began to take his clothes off and walk around his house, KK would say, "Okay, I'm leaving now," and she would disappear. KK's hypocrisy is breathtaking at best or enabling at worst. Mr. Jones believed that KK aided and abetted Diddy's SA of him and was working with Diddy to groom him into accepting a male on male relationship. Through these deviant acts, one would say Diddy has a pattern of practice of engaging in such nefarious activity. This ongoing conduct showed that Diddy cannot be rehabilitated. Next chapter, Mr. Combs attempted to groom Mr. Jones into engaging in men on men relations. Mr. Combs was aware that Mr. Jones looked up to and idolized music producer Stephen Aaron Jordan, better known as Stevie J. Stevie J is an American DJ, record producer, and television personality. Stevie J was part of the Bad Boy Records production team, The Hitmen. In 1997, Stevie J won a Grammy for his work on Puff Daddy's debut album. Throughout the late 90s, Stephen J produced for several artists including Mariah Carey, Tevin Campbell, B.I.G., 112, Jodeci, Faith Evans, Jay-Z, and Eve. Stevie J was one of the producers on the Love album. Mr. Combs used access to Stevie J and his knowledge of Mr. Jones' admiration of Stevie J to groom and entice Mr. Jones to engage in man-on-man activity. Mr. Combs went so far as to share a video of Stevie J having male relations with a white male without any protection. This was done to ease Mr. Jones' anxiety concerning men-on-men activity. According to Mr. Combs, this is a normal practice in the music industry. Look, even Stevie J is doing it. Mr. Combs, Diddy, informed Mr. Jones that he had engaged in with, how can I put this, male on male relations with rappers Redacted, an R&B singer Redacted, and Stevie J. Mr. Combs promised to make sure that Mr. Jones wins Producer of the Year at the Grammys if he engaged in this activity. The following are screenshots of the video of Stevie J with a white male that Mr. Combs provided to Mr. Jones. And that is a edited shot. And then right here, looking at the footnotes, 5 is a Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj. Footnote 6, he performed at the Super Bowl and had a successful Vegas residency. And 7, this writer is in possession of the video and will provide a copy to the court. Now 5, I believe they are referring to Meek Mill, and 6, I believe they are referring to Usher. Again, another screenshot that is, thank God, blurred. Thanksgiving of 2022. Mr. Jones is SA'd by Young Miami's cousin. On Thanksgiving Day of 2022, Mr. Jones was in Mr. Combs' house located in Miami, Florida. Young Miami, the rapper, and her female cousins were also present. Mr. Combs was intoxicated and offered pharmaceuticals to Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones rejected him and proceeded to walk to the restroom. While using the restroom, Young Miami's cousin burst into the bathroom and began touching Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones believed that Mr. Combs sent her there to SA Mr. Jones. As she entered the bathroom, she dropped to her knees and began to do fellatio on Mr. Jones' exposed parts. Mr. Jones pushed her away and exited the bathroom. Young Miami's cousin did not accept Mr. Jones' rejection. As she proceeded to follow Mr. Jones out of the bathroom, she started taking her clothes off and attempted to get on him in the presence of Diddy as well as his staff. Once again, Mr. Jones pushed her off. The followings are images from a video of Young Miami, her cousin, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Combs. Again, these are screenshots. Feel free to pause this to take a further look. Traffic and Victims Protection Act. Throughout his time with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones was transported from California to New York, Florida, and the United States Virgin Islands. During this time, Mr. Jones was forced to solicit workers and perform acts to pleasure Diddy. On or about February 4th of 2023, Diddy forced Mr. Jones to bring a worker and workers back to his home in Miami. And again, footnote on this, the writer is saying that they are in possession of the video and will provide a copy to the courts. And here is more screenshots that are blurred. On or about February 2nd of 2023, the incident, Mr. Jones believed Mr. Combs gave him a pharmaceutical against his will. Mr. Jones recalls waking up with no clothes on, dizzy and confused. He was in bed with two workers and Diddy. He also recalls aimlessly wandering around the house with no clothes on. Again, these are screenshots. On another occasion in Miami, Florida, on Thanksgiving night of 2022, Diddy asked Mr. Jones and DeForest Taylor to enter the studio bathroom. He asked them for a $100 bill because he wanted to do pharmaceuticals with them. Mr. Jones was scared, but luckily he didn't have a $100 bill, so Mr. Combs waited a little later to do the pharmaceutical with Young Miami. Later that evening, he required Mr. Jones to again solicit workers from Booby Trap on the River, and that's the address. Mr. Jones did so, and Mr. Combs forced him to engage in the acts with these workers. And again, this will be the end of part 2 of the video.